It's a brand new week and you're watching The Big Story, where we'll discuss the hottest topics of the day right in the heart of the newsroom. Now, I'm Haryanto coming to you live right here. Now, of course, on to our first segment. China will lower import tariffs on products including frozen pork, pharmaceuticals and some types of semiconductors starting from January 1st, 2020. While the move isn't directly related to the US-China trade war, it supports Beijing's claim to further open its economy. China will implement temporary import tariffs, which are lower than most favoured nation tariffs on more than 850 products. The tariff changes were made to increase imports of products facing a relative domestic shortage of foreign specialty goods for everyday consumption, China's Finance Ministry said in a statement. Goods from countries including Singapore, New Zealand, Australia and South Korea will have even lower levies under the renegotiated free trade agreements with China. We have China correspondent Denson Chong live on Skype right now to tell us more about the impact of these lower tariffs. Hi, Denson.
Hi, Haryanto.
Now, Denson, if we could start, with the ongoing trade war that's happening right now, China is hoping to diversify its market. Could this lowering of tariffs help with that, and if so, how?
Well, today we heard that China is lowering tariffs on everything, like you mentioned, from medicines, avocados, pork, some tech products, petroleum products from January 1st. The Finance Ministry, which made this announcement this morning, says this is a move to sort of boost imports and also address domestic shortages of certain goods. But what it will effectively do is it will lower the cost that Chinese importers would have to pay for these products. It makes them more competitive vis-a-vis their Chinese alternatives. So it will have several effects. One, it will boost imports with other countries. If you're talking about the trade war, it will reduce China's reliance on some kinds of American goods. The move, like you mentioned, is also meant to increase imports in certain products facing a domestic shortage. As the Finance Ministry put it. One of the key things, that has caught everybody's attention today is that is pork, of course. China's hog herds, have been decimated by an African swine flu epidemic this year. With the New Year and the Chinese New Year coming up, it's very important that China tries to plug that gap, with some foreign pork. Another thing is that this, will introduce more competition into China's domestic market. Chinese companies will have to compete with cheaper foreign products, and it will force them to make better quality products for the Chinese market. This is something I think that several analysts have said is one of the more positive effects to come out of the trade war.
Right. Now, Denson, of course, we know the benefits that China stand to gain from this lowering of tariffs. Now, let's take it back here. How is this lowering of tariffs going to affect Singapore? Singapore has a free trade agreement with China, and already this eliminates tariffs for over 95% of Singapore's exports to China. This latest move by Beijing will reduce tariffs even further from these negotiated bilateral trade agreement rates. It doesn't apply just to Singapore. It also affects New Zealand, Australia, South Korea, several other countries. I had a look at some of the goods that are affected by lower tariffs. It runs to something like over 200 pages. But it sort of includes stuff like meat products, some kinds of petroleum products, semiconductors, electronic components, and so on. Basically, it will give Singapore exports, a greater edge in China. Right. Now, Denson, this move, of course, to lower the import tariffs also reaffirms China's commitment to open up its economy. Could you explain more on that?
One of the core complaints that the US has made in this trade war is that China's market is not open. It has barriers, to trade and investment. In general, doing business in China is not easy as a foreign company, as opposed to Chinese companies that operate overseas. But Chinese analysts are pointing to this morning's announcement, and they're saying that this is a genuine move on China's part that shows that, one, it's committed to work towards lower tariffs, and two, to free a more liberal trade. And this latest announcement is a concrete indication of its intention. They also point to other steps that China is taking. For example, also in January, a new foreign investment law will come into effect, which will, do things like boost intellectual property protection, make it easier for foreign companies to operate in China. This year also has lifted restrictions on foreign investment into the financial sector. One Chinese academic told me this afternoon that with both sides, hopefully about to sign a phase 1 trade agreement,
this morning's announcement is a sign to the US that China is serious about his promises.
Right. Now, thank you so much, Denson, for coming on to just share with us on how this lowering of tariffs can affect both China itself and, of course, here in Singapore. Now, to read more on this, you can head on to our website at straitstimes.com.